Alright, let's do the most vile villain ever in comics. And then I might play some games because I haven't played games in such a long time, bro. Okay.
The Reverse Flash, and probably what any other villain has done
Hey,
combined.
back.
I have truly never been more astounded by the lengths that a villain could go through to achieve such a level of chaos than I have been by reading Nemesis. This guy makes everything
Nemesis.
that the Joker, the Reverse Flash, and probably what any other villain has done combined look like child's play.
Let's stop. The Reverse Flash didn't do some wild shit. What's wild about the Reverse Flash is how much hating he has for the Flash. That's what impresses me the most about him. Like when I saw the level of hate this guy has towards the Flash, I was like, God damn, bro, you're doing a lot, bro.
It's actually baffling. This
Whoa,
guy who looks exactly like what I'd imagine Batman and Moon Knight's love child to be is the psychotic lunatic known as
bruh.
Nemesis. And he's exactly that. I mean, in
Nemesis.
the first pages of his comic, he hijacks the president's plane mid-flight, he kills the
What?
pilots, and then proceeds to crash land the plane on top of thousands of people, taking down
What?
several buildings, causing as much destruction and chaos as humanly possible.
What?
That is
Yo, he
one way to
bugging.
start your comic. Nemesis would have
Is this guy fucking Joker? Like Joker's disciple, maybe? I don't
the
know.
training, the gadgets, and the fortune to become the #1 villain in the world. And when I tell you
He
he
has
makes
money
Griffith
too.
look like a good guy,
No,
I'm
no, that's not
literally
possible. That's not possible. That's not possible. Let's not go there. That's not possible. Griffith is a bad guy. Nobody can say otherwise. This
not
man is
kidding you.
crazy.
He's somehow leagues above him if you can believe it. And after I read
Wait,
Nemesis isn't
what?
really not kidding you. He's somehow
But chief's daughter pregnant by her gay. What the fuck did he do?
leagues above
What
him
the
if you can
fuck
believe it.
did he
And
do?
after I read Nemesis's entire reading order, I was left shooketh at the guy's track record. To me, Nemesis is the most vile fictional villain I've ever read. This guy will do
Damn.
anything, and I mean anything, to get his way. He will murder, torture,
Oh,
maim,
bro, he's
inseminate, and
crazy.
frame you for
Inseminate. What was that? He was a very and she was suddenly.
feeding minors, all to go according to his own insane scheme for revenge. He is so
What?
completely irredeemable that at times while reading, I felt like I had to take a break and go take a shower, and I haven't felt that much darkness in me that I had to like wash it away since I watched the movie Requiem for a Dream. So that's a very
I don't know
incredible
the movie. I believe you met the president before your wife. Your wife, you obviously know very
thing
well.
to make me feel so disgusting after reading that I had to go take a shower to wash away.
He's the Joker's disciple, bro. Look at this. Look at this. You can't tell me this man is unrelated to the Joker.
all of the horrendous
He
shit
must have
that
been
he
a
does.
fan or
And
something.
making this video, I honestly would not be surprised if this video gets like flagged and demonetized just for how crazy it gets, because it's just wild. He'll cross any boundary, like virtually any boundary. It's insane. So yeah, let's get into it.
Damn, like this man must be a demon or something. He must be a Saiyan child or something. Cause what the hell wrong with him? I don't even get how the fuck the police daughter chief was pregnant by her gay brother. What the hell did he do to make this happen?
Initially, when reading his first series produced by Icon Comics, we are led to believe that Nemesis is also known as Matthew Anderson, heir to the Anderson fortune. The Anderson family smuggled children from the black market and were entirely
What?
awful people. Totally opposite of the Wayne family already. Soon they'd be caught red-handed, and not too long afterward, Ford under the care of his uncle who now inherited a billion-dollar electronics company. Too long afterward,
Oh, it's a gang war. What the? Yeah, he's something
Ford
wrong
under
with
the care
him.
of his uncle who now inherited a billion-dollar electronics company, Anderson ran away and traveled the globe to learn the ways of crime. By the age of 12,
What
he was
the
a
hell
gang
is wrong
lord.
with
By
him?
15, Asia's largest drug exporter. And at the age of 23, he felt he was ready to start his mother's dying wish. And that would be destroying the clever police officer. At this point in Nemesis's career, he is an expert in all
You have absolutely no right to fucking demand revenge. You were smuggling kids. You were buying children off the black market. What the hell exactly do you think you? What? What the hell?
all things villainy, always seeming to know what's going to happen next and keeps a step ahead of everyone. Almost like he's similar to another pointy-eared hero we all know. Starting out his villainous career, he'd set out to destroy the lives of several police chiefs as practice before killing the now appointed police chief in Washington, Chief Morrow, the man who condemned his entire family to death. So when this story really begins, it's after a time in Tokyo where Nemesis is committing various acts of terrorism, culminating in the murder of its police chief. By having a bullet train run the chief over and explode the tunnel so that it'd fall over thousands of people, causing mass destruction. I wasn't kidding. This is how the book starts. After this, Nemesis then turns his attention over to Washington, D.C. and its famed chief of police, Blake Morrow, sending Chief Morrow a calling card stating Blake Morrow, March 12th, at midnight. Flatline still counts. Morrow immediately gives out the order to put his family into protective custody, simultaneously planning ahead for what's to come from Nemesis, because Morrow knows the kind of reputation Nemesis holds. After this, his first act is the hijacking of Air Force One, which he crashes into the city, killing thousands, as I mentioned earlier in the video. Via a hijacked television signal, Nemesis openly declares his intentions toward Washington and reveals he has the president. Following this, he poisons those within the Pentagon and reveals the veritable treasure trove of secrets contained within on the internet. On top of stealing all of the nuclear codes in the process.
Is this man crazy, yo?
Striking back at Nemesis, Chief Blake sets up a trap involving a child and her heart transplant. Because Nemesis, the psychotic maniac he is, he just can't help himself but ruin the lives of children when given the chance. So after Nemesis steals the heart for the child's surgery, he goes on a killing spree, making the police force look like grade A fools with a capital F. However, in the process of escaping the police, Nemesis is captured by Blake Morrow, revealing the heart along with the surgery was just a ploy to get Nemesis out in the open. Nemesis was just carrying a pig heart the entire time. To which Nemesis mockingly tells the chief he planned to head for this. Days go by and everyone feels astoundingly safe now that Nemesis is locked up. So much so that Morrow gives the order to have his family come back home. But this doesn't last, because Nemesis doesn't even spend no longer than 15 minutes in prison before enacting the next step of his master plan, hiring people who work within the prison. They release Nemesis, who ends up killing 97 guards and releasing 2,000 inmates into the city. On top of this, Chief Blake discovers that his son and daughter are missing following this, captured by, you guessed it, Nemesis. And in exchange for their lives, Nemesis demands the chief to reveal 3 secrets, to which Morrow reluctantly tells Nemesis for the preservation of his children. Firstly, his wife Peggy had an affair with his former...
The first thing was that Peggy and my old partner had an 18, for which she considered leaving the mill McGraw, and when he got engaged to... Why do you... What? Partner.
Secondly, his son is homosexual.
I wasn't in a poor performer sexually.
Sexual. Thirdly, his daughter got pregnant and had an abortion. These 3 things reveal that Blake is a driven career man and place greater emphasis on that side.
Wait, his wife cheated on his partner?
Firstly, his wife Peggy had an affair with his former partner. Secondly,
oh my, why are you still with her, bro?
His son is homosexual. Thirdly, his daughter got pregnant and had an abortion. These 3 things reveal that Blake is a driven career man and place greater emphasis on that side of his life, neglecting his family. Satisfied, Nemesis releases Blake's children unharmed. However, Blake's daughter is now pregnant by her brother via fertilization of her eggs. And as an added torture to Morrow, Nemesis ensures that if she has an abortion, she would be unable to bear children ever again. At this very moment reading this comic book, I was so viscerally appalled at the magnitude of evil Nemesis is willing to achieve that in truth, I wanted nothing more than to see this dude get murked. Because not only does he commit the most obscene thing imaginable to Blake's children, who are completely innocent and have absolutely nothing to do with this.
Blake is innocent as well, bro. What the fuck? He's the one that's in the wrong. His family was in the wrong.
Also goes out of his way to do the most obscene thing imaginable to them just to fuck with Blake some more. This, you can imagine, creates a rift between Blake and his family, and definitely
Bitch, you cheating on him. What the fuck? Yo, you know what? I'm not even gonna
To add
say
the
shit.
cherry on top, Nemesis also releases to the public what happened to his kids. Now, through an undercover cop implanted in the low levels of Nemesis's organization, Blake leads a raid at the home of Matthew Anderson, who it is hinted was masquerading as his uncle the entire time. However, the mansion is rigged to explode, killing most of the SWAT team. After this, Blake is captured, and Nemesis reveals his best friend of 10 years has been working with Nemesis the
Oh
entire time,
wow.
while also dropping the bombshell that he is not Matthew Anderson at all. That's right. The whole vengeance for his parents and destroyed childhood was nothing but a ruse. His whole backstory and motivation was nothing but a character he adopted to better destroy Chief Blake. Nemesis plans years in advance, planting moles and agents throughout the lives and organizations of his targeted police chiefs, confessing to Blake that he's nothing more than an extremely rich man who's just utterly bored and can only seek pleasure from ruining others.
I'm gonna ask somebody to arrest the nigga that wrote this. And cause he's crazy. We got a serious problem on our hands. To come up with something like this, you mentally not okay. You mentally not okay. This man is doing this out of boredom. There's a serious problem with the nigga that wrote this.
People's lives. After killing his best friend brutally, Nemesis unveils his grand finale. They are in the Oval Office, and Blake's wife, along with the president, are both rigged with explosives. And
Bro,
it's
let
here
your
where
wife
Nemesis
blow,
gives
bro. She's not. Why you with her still after she cheated on you?
Blake a choice:
You're
kill his
stupid.
wife or the president. Blake is torn between the two, but the president makes the choice for him. And this part was hella funny to me because when the president starts to approach Nemesis saying that he'll kill him, Nemesis in utter confusion is like, sir, I'm not entirely sure where this is going. Are you like an expert in kung fu or something I don't know about? Standing as close as possible to Nemesis, the president tells Blake to detonate his explosive, leading Blake and Nemesis to fight on the lawn on the outside of the White House. Blake manages to dog on Nemesis during the fight, while Nemesis pretty much cries to himself, making excuses like if the president hadn't blown up in his face, he'd be winning this fight right now. To which the fight comes to a close with the two shooting each other at the exact same time, seemingly killing
Why
each
did
other.
they make
However,
this
the chief
comic?
survives his injuries, while Nemesis, despite claiming to be too rich to fail, does not. A little detail I'd like to remind you all of too, that's a
This nigga's trash. When the time comes to fucking die, he's trying to.
really
I
nice
hate
touch
it,
to
yeah.
the story is the calling card given to Blake in the beginning, stating that he'll die on the 12th and flatline still counts. Because that calling card ends up coming back into play when Blake flatlines on the table.
No way, he did not die. That means.
And after this, Blake seemingly gets a happy ending as he devotes his time to his family. After his ordeal with Nemesis revealed to him what was really important. And in
Why is he sitting with his wife? Oh, you know what? Fuck that shit.
something of an epilogue, it is revealed in a card addressed to Blake that a mysterious gentleman runs a business catering to the dark fantasies of bored and wealthy people, giving these people an adventure for a short few weeks every year with artists and engineers working to create supervillainous characters for them to play. Whilst presently focused
What?
primarily in the Pacific Rim, a steadily growing client list is set to expand.
Somebody
west.
kill his
The
wife,
letter
please.
tells Blake that he is safe from next year's supervillains and commends him for defeating Nemesis, even showing admiration for his choices between
But wouldn't
family
that?
and career.
But let's think about it. Nemesis came for him because he wanted a challenge. He beat Nemesis. Wouldn't that make more villain come towards him?
Remarkably, too, Blake and his wife are given a bottle of the most expensive wine in the world, which has been waiting for them for 10 years, along with the letter, leaving you to kind of question if Nemesis is really truly dead. Yeah,
He
he's
delivered
super dead.
these
Which
10
means
years
this
ago.
is the end of the video now. So
No.
don't forget to leave a like and subscribe. Check out my Twitter. And as always, I'll catch y'all on the flip side.
Bro.
Did you know you
Wait.
can...
Is he for real? Wait. No way. There's no way, bro. Yeah.
Now cracking smiles and sticking his tongue out while blowing people up. He's such a silly little goofball.
Freaky
Tons of
ass.
mischief. This Nemesis story basically takes the things that happened before and reworks those story beats to make it a much more fluid and much better story. Taking things like the Matthew Anderson backstory from the previous story and and
So
making
they
it
basically
Nemesis's
threw it
origin
away.
among other story beats, which also segues us into this new Nemesis's origin.
Cause I'm not gonna lie. His previous, like,
Now, who
life
is
story made no fucking sense. I'm hoping this one makes
Nemesis and
more
how did he
sense,
come
bro.
to be? Again. Well, it all started with a string of 9 murdered hitchhikers found all over Los Angeles, mutilated, headless, and bug-ridden. An officer
Okay.
named Joe Costello, who's going to come back later on in the story, among other officers, were hell-bent on finding this killer. And they did on Matthew's 10th birthday, when they beat the shit out of his parents and flipped his entire world upside down. After which he never saw his parents again
kinda
because not
deserved.
too long after being in prison, they were given the lethal injection. After this, Matthew was sent to live in a corrupt orphanage where kids were used to serve the mob, leading Matthew to run away and try to make it on his own, picking pockets and living out of trash cans. Until one day he attempted to pickpocket a young lady in a diner, which brought
baddie.
Matthew to an avenue in life
Baddie
he'd
alert.
never expect to go down. The young lady, seeing his raw potential, would extend an invitation for Matthew
Potential
to
of
meet his
doing
boss
what?
to make serious cashola, but it's a one-time offer. Reluctantly, Matthew accepts and drinks coffee offered to him by the lady, where he next awake to the sounds of chanting and drums, surrounded by several
cult.
cultists as the leader shouts that Matthew is now in the
Run,
circle.
buddy,
And if he
run.
attempts to leave, they'll set the dogs on him. Throwing down a spear to Matthew, they tell him that to earn his position, he has to prove that he's worthy by killing the opponent beside him. At first, Matthew doesn't seek to kill the kid, but once he realizes that this kid won't hesitate to kill him, he fights back until his opponent can no longer
Wait,
draw
why
a
is
breath.
it a black
After winning,
kid,
Matthew
though?
was sent to his next trial. The next
Bruh.
trial was in Yosemite Falls, and the challenge was to hold on for 3 whole days without losing grip under a waterfall. Matthew's master during the trial asked what motivates him to continue to survive, to which Matthew would say back that it's for revenge. Revenge on the cops.
Revenge for what exactly? Cause I'm not gonna lie, your parents 100% deserve what happened to them. They were killing people, and from the little shot we got from when they were captured, and from what he's saying, it sounds like they were drug lords too. Maybe they were just addicts, but they were also murderers. So I don't understand why you want revenge.
Cops that took everything from Matthew, vowing to his master that he'll kill them all, leading his master to knock Matthew down the waterfall, shouting to prove it then, bringing us to the present day. A man named Jake hears a noise outside of his home. However, when he leaves to go check it out, he finds nothing. But upon entering his home and walking towards his wife Margot, he finds her scared to death, as she tells Jake that he's under the bed smiling from
Yeah, you know the story about the monster under the bed. Right here, bro. We got one
Later
right
on in
here.
Los Angeles, a man named Carlos
Baddie.
is running a club to be chauffeured around the city with his girlfriend. And Carlos is a pretty big player in Los
Or maybe
Angeles,
not.
leading one of the top gangs in the city. However, that's all about to change as Nemesis glides down from the sky, bursting through the car windshield as he fights his way to Carlos, ultimately capturing him, and zipping off into the night sky. Cut to Carlos, surrounded by at least 50 others blindfolded inside of an in-ground pool. Nemesis then makes his presence known to everyone in the room and announces that he'll be hosting a Fortnite Battle Royale with all the blindfolded people being the involuntary contestants, in which he explains that the only way to get out alive is to kill everyone till there's only one left. And in case if it weren't
How is
clear
they gonna
enough,
know?
if they also remove the blindfold, they'll detonate a small bomb in their head and... well, I think you can imagine what would happen next. Soon,
Are they
everyone
all
in the
carrying
in-ground pool
knives?
begin to
Just
stab one another with weapons provided by
carrying knife like
Nemesis
it's a
as the
fucking
crowd watches
wallet?
on from the sidelines, horrified. Nemesis goes on to say to the crowd while the fighting goes on behind
The
him that
second
he's
in
not here to take over Los Angeles
command.
already.
About to receive a promotion. Whoa, yeah, because all of them are gonna be dead. So the ones that are gonna be the next leaders are the one that were the right hands. Except
But
for
rather
one
only
person.
hire each member from the crowd for 7 days to settle a score. Going on to say that if they help willingly, they'll be rewarded handsomely, and when Nemesis is done, they won't have to worry about the newly elected mayor promising to clean up the city. Eventually, the
Damn.
battle royale comes to an end with Carlos the last one standing,
Carlos
celebrating
won.
his victory. But Nemesis just shoots Carlos in the head.
Okay.
And Nemesis' newly hired henchman, let's get started. For over 20 years, Nemesis has been honing his cruelty and skills, and he has planned out virtually everything.
The
for his
cops will
revenge.
then realize
As
they could-
Nemesis,
they
along with
stopped
his
answering
henchmen, raid
calls.
the
That's
Dubois
kinda
Art
crazy.
Museum, making sure to kill absolutely everyone inside, either by slicing,
There is
or
no
dicing,
need
or
to do all that,
dispersing
bro.
toxic fumes into the air. after which Nemesis and the henchmen begin stealing everything expensive to fund the next step of his plan. This is where another part from the original Nemesis story gets reworked a bit, where before Nemesis originally planned to kill Detective Blake after 10 years of planning, now it's switched to a man named Joe Costello, just elected mayor, who has put over 2,000 new police officers onto the street. He's also the guy who killed Nemesis' parents,
yeah, I remember him.
Is gonna go. And in the middle of giving his speech, when he begins to announce the newly appointed chief of police, Wendy Gomez, her body is brought down, dangling high above the stage. Meanwhile, back over with Nemesis.
Let me go back for a little bit.
Her
again.
Officers onto the street. He's also the guy who went high above the stage. Meanwhile, back over with Nemesis after killing dozens of police officers from the museum, Nemesis somehow hacks into several broadcasting channels where he then addresses the people. As he says, "Hello, children. Don't worry. There's nothing to be afraid of. If I wanted you dead, you'd be choking on your guts right now. You don't know me, but I've got such a plan for this place, and in 7 days' time, everything will be clear. Only one thing stands in my way.
Calm the fuck down.
And it's all these extra cops on the streets. So I pulled $100 million heist this evening, the proceeds of which I'm going to share with all the little people. Are you listening out there? Because this is quite an offer. I'm putting a bounty on the head of every police officer in the city. I'll take you 10 grand for every dead cop."
Oh my god.
Nemesis says this as he walks into the crowd of cop cars outside, which he seems to have already blown up with various rocket launchers. As Nemesis then executes a cop on that live feed, going out to everyone. This immediately causes chaos in the streets of Los Angeles as cops are targeted left and right, with even keys gunning for the heads of police officers jumping at the chance to make 10 grand. As Mayor Joe Costello
That's an easy 10 grand, bro. Of course they're gonna do it.
About stopping Nemesis while the entire police force is either dropping like flies or quitting. But this brings nothing but pure joy to Nemesis as he watches the man who took everything from him begin to slowly lose it all. However, after the museum fiasco, the man Jake from earlier is just like, "Bro, why are me and my wife here? We aren't criminals." To which Nemesis just shushes Jake. And
I don't
says
remember
that they're
Jake.
both a part of the plan, and not
I don't remember Jake.
Now, cutting
honestly.
through a few minor story beats, Nemesis essentially brings the city to its knees after kidnapping the newly appointed police chief Reggie by bursting through his helicopter window and nabbing him. A day goes by, and randomly the next night a distress call goes out over by the waters, so a police unit goes by to check it out, where they find the new police chief Reggie handcuffed to the boat, not knowing that it's clearly a trap. As Nemesis sneaks onto their boat, tranquilizing most of the cops except for one. The last cop pulls out his gun aiming at Nemesis, but Nemesis, calm and collected, tells the cop named Eddie to compose himself and aim the gun right between his shoulder blades, allowing Eddie to get used to the rhythm of the water. Eddie asks why he wants to do this, to which Nemesis tells him that he wants him to see just how fast he really is. Eddie fires the gun, but at the moment of firing, a baton is sent towards his face.
Nah, that's not possible, bro.
And Nemesis comes out.
You can't be faster than a fucking bullet.
Sean Strickland fight with Sneeko. That shit was so unfair. Nemesis then handcuffs each of the officers to the inside of the boat and then manages to make the boat start to slowly sink, where Nemesis explains to officers Reggie and Eddie that they were both responsible for the death of his parents, and that they will both die a slow and agonizing death for it. As the boat sinks ever so slowly, Nemesis hitches a ride with his henchmen and on to the next step of his master plan, by making a suicide bomber crash a plane directly into the National Guard. It's here where we see just how inhumane
the National Guard
is, from how he explains how to create a suicide.
You've got 20 seconds to abandon your position. My suicide bomber is already on the hurt. Her? Oh my god. Wait, what? How do you create a... I'm not even gonna read this. Bro, this guy is crazy.
How to create a suicide bomber by exclaiming that it all starts with a little sexual blackmail. See, Nemesis
he read
his underage goons to seduce an airline pilot, after which Nemesis used
What?
the footage of the pair to blackmail the pilot to do his bidding, or else the footage would get leaked and her entire life would end up ruined. Thus, Nemesis commanded
marriage. What are you doing sleeping around when you're married? You know what? That you deserve that. I'm not gonna lie.
After the other.
If you remain faithful, none of this would have happened.
Bad. It never really mattered. Nemesis recorded her committing one murder after the other, stockpiling on the blackmail till she did everything he said right up to the end.
She deserved it.
Secret. And after the bomber does her thing, crashing into the National Guard, chaos ensues on the streets.
It happened because of what she did.
With his army of henchmen, set off to kill the few soldiers.
Can't blame nobody but herself.
This video is gonna get me on a list. After this, Nemesis pays a visit to another police officer by the name of Maggie Cheng. now retired. They share a conversation about the state of the world for a few brief moments, and Maggie accepts her death, which surprises Nemesis. So he just has Jake and Margot burn Maggie alive for him. I swear it just gets more and more messed up as the pages keep turning. This ends up leading Joe Costello to arrive at Maggie's apartment to try and save her in time, but by the time he arrives, he bumps into Nemesis, leading him to shoot Costello in the leg, telling him that he doesn't get to die until Friday. Silly. Later in the hospital, Joe recovers from his wounds, and in the midst of other officers trying to figure out Nemesis's motives for messing with Joe and his old unit, Nemesis begins to broadcast a new message to the people of Los Angeles, playing on a continuous loop. Nemesis in the message says, "Good morning, Los Angeles. Welcome to more chaos and disorder. But this will seem like the good old days.
My head.
The device behind me is an atomic bomb, and the bad news is I'm going to level this city if anyone is seen in public. I've got drones in the sky watching every single street, so it's locked down again until further notice. But this could all end tomorrow if the mayor plays ball and does precisely as I tell him. I know he's recovering in the hospital from those gunshot wounds, but he can make everything right again if he meets me on the 5 p.m. train at the Pershing Square subway. Oh, and make sure you're on your own, Joe. One wrong move, and I press this red button here." As the message ends, Joe sits up and is prepared to meet Nemesis.
I doubt it's gonna end after you.
The others in the room say that Nemesis will kill him for sure, and Joe understands that, but he has a feeling that if he at least gives himself up, all of this will at least stop, and no one else will get hurt. So that afternoon, with the entire
he's
city
definitely gonna target his wife. I was hoping it was single. But he's gonna target his wife, man.
Orders, Joe heads off to catch that 5 p.m. train Nemesis wants him on. Joe arrives at the station and gets on the train, and he heads off. Joe's whole journey here is being live streamed to the world by Nemesis. The entire city, including Joe's wife, Natalie, are all watching the stream on their TV and other devices. And as the train is on the tracks moving, it eventually approaches a tunnel. Once it hits the tunnel, the train goes dark. When the train comes out to the other side of the tunnel, Joe is no longer in it. Everyone watching from home has no idea what happened to Joe. And this all comes to a head as Nemesis has Joe tied to the nuclear bomb in his lair. He tells Joe, "Hello, Mr. Mayor. This is the bomb I was telling you about. Are you ready to answer some difficult questions? Because the entire city is depending on you right now." As Costello was rigged to the nuclear bomb and a lie detector, Nemesis tells him that the lie detector is very sophisticated. So he better not lie, because if he lies, the bomb will blow. On top of this, the whole interrogation is being broadcast to everyone in Los Angeles.
Oh my God, I hope you was straight, bruh.
Are you the former detective and heroic district attorney known as the Honest Joe Costello? Joe answers yes, so Nemesis asks, and are you the current mayor of Los Angeles?
What? Why would you even ask that, bro? Oh my God.
Joe says he is, and so far these are all pretty surprisingly easy questions. Nemesis then tries to throw Joe off, so he asks how big Joe's you-know-what is, to which Joe gives an incredibly accurate measurement that I'm not ready to say, so I'm sorry. And across all...
Hey, this man packing, bro. He packing, bro.
All of these questions, Joe is being astoundingly truthful, leading Nemesis to finally ask.
He packing, yo. I'm not gonna lie.
Nemesis says, "I want
not as much as me though. I'm not gonna lie."
The arrests of Chuck and Katie Anderson for the murder of those 9 hitchhikers all those years ago. He wants to finally hear the truth about his parents. Being forced to tell the truth, Joe explains that him and his fellow officers, the ones that Nemesis has murdered this entire week, all came through the academy together, and they vowed to shake things up to clean up the city. So they solved all of these crimes, big and small, one by one together. But there was one case they couldn't crack. Who was murdering all of these hitchhikers? Joe says, "We'd been after a couple of drug dealers for a while, a husband and a wife, and we couldn't pin anything on them. They were making a killing and driving us nuts. Because we've taken down everyone else in that area." Joe can't remember who had the idea, but they decided to kill 2 birds with 1 stone and frame his parents for the murders of the hitchhikers, giving themselves a perfect record and continuing to rise through the ranks of the department. They faked the evidence for Chuck and Katie Anderson and sent them both to prison for a crime they never committed. Nemesis then says,
"So it wasn't them.
Just send them to prison, did you?"
But still, they were jugglers. I don't really care. How many people died from their drugs?
They faced death by lethal injection, leaving their little boy behind in the care system. Saying to Joe, "Do you know who that boy grew up to be?" Joe realizes that Nemesis was that boy. As Nemesis continues by saying that you always had to be the best, didn't you? You always had to win no matter what the cost to anyone else. Your family...
Bro, what? He only did that one thing. And honestly, I wouldn't blame him. Drug lords, I get them in the fucking Death
You
penalty.
must feel sick about your behavior. Nemesis then turns off
No,
the
I'm pretty
nuclear
sure they
bomb,
don't.
and as the video feed cuts off, Nemesis reveals his parents' coffin with his dead parents inside, brought up and presented to Joe. The next day, two of the henchmen Nemesis hired from the very beginning, Jake and Margot, are driving Nemesis to the airport, where they ask him what Nemesis ended up doing with Joe Costello. Nemesis explains he buried Joe Costello in the coffin with his parents and put him under the floor of
What?
City Hall, where no one will ever hear him, adding that Joe always said he would be at City Hall for a long time. He just didn't know how
Damn.
right he truly was. After finally achieving his revenge he had set out to claim for over 20 years, Nemesis would finally leave Los Angeles feeling somewhat content. And as Jake alongside Margot arrive at the airport, Nemesis begins to head inside his private plane. When Margot comments that everything Nemesis set out to do has tied up perfectly, every single loose end is in a little bow now. Well,
I'm 100% sure he's the one that killed the hitchhikers. I don't know why.
all
I
except
think
for
it's
one
him.
little thing. Who really killed all of those hitchhikers 20 years ago?
I
Who
think
stood
it's
back
him.
and let Nemesis's parents take the blame for their crime? It turns out that Jake and Margot were responsible the entire time. And Nemesis tells them, "Did you really think you were going to get away with this, Jake? I know what you and Margot used to get up to." Nemesis gives
he
them
knew.
both a gun and tells them, "Alright, so here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna settle
Nemesis
this
an
with an
old man?
old-fashioned duel. And whoever draws first gets to be my butler. I've got a whole list of criminal ventures planned for the future, and I need to have someone to make my money possible.
Damn.
What do you say? Does that sound like a fair way of settling this?" Without even a second thought, Margot shoots Jake in the head and explains that it was either him or her, and she chose herself. Nemesis is more than delighted with her decision, the psychopath that he is, and says that he thinks the two of them will get along.
But he's a
just
whole man. How was he jumping around like
ending
this?
the story. That was the story of Nemesis, the complete shebang. And I'm not lying when I say
There's a
that
little bit
Nemesis
more.
in all sense of the word is fucked. But after all of his
He's
comics that I've
fucking
read,
crazy.
which really isn't that long of a list, I gotta say that I kinda actually like the character in a few ways.
You're crazy
I like
as
his
well.
entire aesthetic, not to mention the whole warped Batman vibe
No, his fucking suit is trash.
that he's got going on. And I really prefer the more tweaked out version of Nemesis compared to the original. Mostly because it just does everything the original did so much better and all around just feels more flavorful. Granted, the writing can sometimes get a little cringy, but if I'm being honest, I don't really mind it at all too much because it feels like it fits the character. And not only that, I also love characters like this guy because they're like a guilty pleasure for me to read. I don't know what it is, but it's just unhinged characters boost my serotonin levels or something. Especially when they got a sick and twisted sense of humor. That's like the cherry on top. On top of this, Mark Miller also started a series called Big Game where he essentially takes every comic book series he's ever made and combines it into one sole universe. So now Jupiter's Legacy, Wanted, and even Kick-Ass are all in the same series.
Oh, this
It
is not
actually
part
just
of
ended recently.
DC or
It's so
Marvel.
cool, and you should definitely check it out. I have, and I
I thought it was part of DC or Marvel. I was like, this is way too dark.